Hi, welcome to Hannity. Tonight, the Democratic Party way out of control. They've declared war on a president of the United States, and of course, driven by a blind, unyielding, psychotic rage for President Trump. And Democrats and their collaborators in the mob, they will do anything to smear, slander, besmirch President Trump and anybody that likes the president. That means they're really attacking you, we, the American people. So make no mistake, all these holier-than-thou, well, dirtbags, to be very obvious here, they have wanted President Trump impeached pretty much the very moment he was sworn in. And, of course, they just haven't been able to come up with any reason because he didn't do anything wrong. Russia, 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 impeach, 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 collusion, collusion, stormy, stormy. Okay. There were no high crimes, bribery, misdemeanors, no conspiracy, no obstruction of justice, no cover-up at all. And tonight, nothing has changed. Ukrainian story, you know what? The only person that was there shaking down Ukraine for anything was sleepy, creepy, crazy Joe 30330. Now, coming up, the president's attorneys, Jay Sekulow, Rudy Giuliani, they will be here to weigh in on all of this. We have a studio audience panel of experts. But first, let's be clear and very clear about one thing. Donald Trump is not going to be removed from office. Remember what Congressman Al Green said? He goes, yeah, this was back in May. We're going to have to impeach him because he can't win at the ballot box. So all of the hysteria, I know it's got a lot of people upset over impeachment, in the end will be much to do about nothing. But unfortunately, Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, the Jerry Nadlers, the cowardly Schiffs, the Maxine Waters of the world, they don't care what happens to the country in the process. What have they done to make this a safer, more secure country, create jobs, more prosperity for you, we, the American people? This is beyond a political stunt. This is a psychosis. They can't escape from the reality they lost in 2016. And thankfully, if they keep this up, they will lose badly in 2020. This is from a party that does not care about truth. I mean, there's no objective truth in their world. Facts, justice, fairness, none of that matters. Their only concern is like a bloodlust for President Trump, anybody that supports the president. President, well, we can't say it any better than he has. They have declared war. They did it. Somebody declares war. There's only one answer. Defeat them at the ballot box. Take a look.
We're in a war. These people are sick. They're sick. And nobody's called it out like I do.
All right, tonight a perfect example of this madness and sickness. California Congressman, yeah, the cowardly Schiff. President Trump calls him Little Adam Schiff and Pencil Neck Schiff. But his colleagues refer to him as, and we refer to him as, the biggest liar in the U.S. House of Representatives. Case in point, yesterday he performed what was a dramatic reading of the phone call transcript between the president and the Ukrainian president, his counterpart, Zelensky. And the only problem is Schiff made it up. Every single word he made up. And in other words, an official House hearing featuring an acting director of national intelligence. Yeah, there's Congressman Schiff, who's lied, been proven a lie over and over again, concocting his own version of the call, but out of thin air. We have the transcript. He didn't have to make it up. He could have read the actual transcript and, by the way, entered that into the official record. And after getting called out for lying, well, Schiff, he referred his fake version of the phone call a parody. Oh, that's what that is in Congress. Yeah, maybe he's right. Now, President Trump is now calling for him to resign. He tweeted out, quote, Adam Schiff totally made up my conversation with the Ukrainian president and read it to Congress and millions. He must resign. He must be investigated. And he's been doing this now for over 2 years. He's a pretty sick man. And as per usual, Schiff has no regrets for trying to purposely mislead the American public. He could have read it the way it was written down, the way the transcript happened. No, he needed to embellish it because there's nothing in the real transcript. Take a look.
Do you regret what you call the parody, the use of those phrases during the course of your opening statement?
No, I think everyone understood, and my GOP colleagues may feign otherwise, that was mocking the president's conduct. But make no mistake about this, what the president did is of the utmost gravity and the utmost seriousness because it involves such a fundamental betrayal of his oath.
All right, this is not the first time Schiff caught in a lie before the Mueller report was even released. Remember, he claimed that he had direct evidence of Trump-Russia collusion. Lie. He told that lie over and over again. Also claiming other evidence of colluding was hiding in plain sight. That's another lie. And, of course, there is an actual recording of Schiff. Yep, he's the one guy that believed he was colluding with a Russian, and it's taped. And by the way, he's like, what is the nature of the compromise? Naked pics of the Trump, of course. Did Vladimir see this? Did Vladimir see it? Oh, but of course, Vladimir see the naked pictures. Yeah, he was trying to get dirt on Donald Trump and collude to impact American elections. And while Schiff is engaging in his fraudulent activity, well, the Democratic Speaker, in name only, Pelosi, she's floating a brand new baseless conspiracy theory. According to Pelosi, this whole Ukrainian issue, Russia is behind President Trump's phone call with the Ukrainian president. Wow. You know, Earth, Pelosi, take a look.
I think Russia has a hand in this, by the way. But we saw with the Russian disruption of our election last time, their interference, 100% confidence of the intelligence community, high confidence of the intelligence community that the Russians disrupted our election. That was wrong. The integrity of our elections is central to our democracy.
It was Russia's fault, of course. Now, finally, Nancy, the Russia collusion. We had 4 separate investigations: a House Intel investigation, bipartisan Senate investigation, the FBI 9-month investigation, the Mueller 3-year witch hunt. No evidence of any collusion, no obstruction. Maybe someone should remind Nancy that Democrats' false, phony, feigned moral outrage. Now it's shifted to Ukraine. We're on to another talking point, Nancy. You got to keep up with your crowd. Now, tonight, we're also learning new details that cast very serious doubt on the claims of the so-called whistleblower that isn't a whistleblower. Look at this. New York Times reporter Ken Vogel saying that the country of Ukraine had no idea the U.S. aid was, yes, withheld during the Trump phone call in question. They didn't know till a month later. And keep in mind, the Inspector General found that the whistleblower had political bias against Trump. And remember, he or she, who's not really a whistleblower, is represented by a law firm that pays for anti-Trump leaks. And the so-called whistleblower who has not had no direct knowledge of any phone call, that's called hearsay. Your Honor, I object. Hearsay. Sustained. That's how that would work in a court of law. Third-hand accounts publicly available in the media. Well, what good is that? That's not a whistleblower. Now we have the president and his attorney, Jay Sekulow. They are rightly claiming this person did not act alone. In fact, Jay Sekulow believes that a law firm drafted that complaint. Certainly looks like it to me. Doesn't seem like a whistleblower. But also one question today is, well, the New York Times report. Former CIA, back to the CIA. Oh, do we have spies again within our own government spying on the president of the United States, abusing the powerful tools of intelligence that we give them, we entrust to them to keep us safe? Now, regardless of who wrote this complaint, its claims are bogus. There was no quid pro quo. Zip. You can read it yourself, not the made-up version. No misconduct, nothing. Only person that's involved in a quid pro quo, if you want to say so, that would be, yeah, Joe 30330 and his son that had no qualifications. When it comes to Ukraine, no experience. Energy, oil, gas, no experience. He makes millions, and he made billions in China. Same thing. No background experience in private equity, banking, none whatsoever that we can find. But he goes with his father, flies on Air Force Two, and what do you know? He's got $1.5 billion in contracts. It's a great life if your dad's the vice president, I guess. And Speaker in name only, Nancy Pelosi, is apparently living in her alternative reality even further. Take a look.
I think we have to stay focused, as far as the public is concerned, on the fact that the President of the United States used taxpayer dollars to shake down the leader of another country for his own political gain.
You know what? We can't have, that's a quid pro quo. Nancy, care to comment on this? Let's take a look.
We're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said, I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, what, 6 hours? I looked, I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a got fired.
Son of a beat. The guy that's investigating my son didn't have experience to make all that money. He got fired because I threatened to withhold tax dollars, the $1 billion we were going to give Ukraine, and I'm in charge of Ukraine. Okay, that's Biden bragging about breaking the law and a quid pro quo. Tonight, there is now credible evidence that the former vice president leveraged that $1 billion. You saw the tape of your money to get the Ukrainian prosecutor fired, all to protect his son. Remember, he was warned by the New York Times, and the New York Times told him, yeah, they're investigating your son. He had another warning. He tried previously to get the guy fired. Now he just withheld $1 billion and said you got 6 hours. Why would a vice president of the United States of America want a Ukrainian prosecutor fired? Now, just for a second, because the media won't touch it, let's imagine for a second that that was Donald Trump bragging that he withheld $1 billion until they fired a prosecutor that was doing business with his sons or his daughters. I don't think the media would ever stop until Donald Trump got in trouble for that little gig. And by the way, Don Jr., Eric, Ivanka, Tiffany, mayhem. Instead, the mob is barely covering that real scandal surrounding Joe and Hunter Biden. We won't stop. We'll get you the truth, as we always do. A top Ukrainian prosecutor was investigating Burisma Holdings. That is the oil and gas company that paid Hunter Biden millions of dollars to serve on their board and consult, with no experience in natural gas, no experience with Ukraine. And after learning that his son was about to be interviewed by the top prosecutor, well, that's when, Sleepy Joe, 30330, demanded the prosecutor be fired. Biden says he wanted the prosecutor gone because he was corrupt. We have a brand new report from investigative reporter John Solomon. Biden's story does not hold water. He has 450 brand new documents, pages of it, interviews, numerous Ukrainian officials, and it appears the prosecutor was fired because of personal reasons surrounding the former vice president. By the way, he has a sworn affidavit to that very fact.